Good morning, good afternoon, world. Um, Mike's in a little different position. Hopefully it sounds okay. So this is the Culture Pilgrim community. Hello. Um, right now it's a community of one. But I've decided I'm going to record a little transmission today just to kick things off. Um, and to speak to some of the intention around Culture Pilgrim. Obviously, this has been a project for getting on, I think, 3 years, potentially more now. And it's something that is continually developed. The expression has been refined through particularly the last 10 or so rap singles and projects. But I've been enamored with the idea that Culture Pilgrim is something beyond me. Culture Pilgrim is not simply a cool um, alias and symbol that encapsulates my own journey through cultures, through worldviews, in pilgrimage towards some realization of the heart of wisdom. Culture Pilgrim for me feels like there's a line I spit in one of the recent tracks. I can't remember which one, but I go like we all culture pilgrims. And it's that feeling of like a lot of people are engaged in that process. A lot of people are on a kind of pilgrimage through cultures, whether literally through travel, through being nomadic, or, in place, pilgrimaging through the cultures of the mind, the context, the histories, the philosophies, um, going on some kind of journey guided by some kind of sense that there is a truth or a truer participation in life that they are moving towards, although it may often be a journey filled with uncertainty. And that is also something that Culture Pilgrim has explored quite extensively and seems to be maybe even part of the key to pilgrimage. And so the idea of the Culture Pilgrim community for me is to begin to foster a space for people who are in journey to really discover and share some of the wisdom of what it means to be in a journey, some of the beauty of being in a journey, some of the challenges that come with unrooting oneself from a place, from a country, from a religious worldview, from a political ideology, and going on a journey into the uncertain, into the unknown, towards a horizon which we sense but do not yet see. And I think part of what characterizes that is a unique path. I think the distinct quality of Culture Pilgrim is the absolute unicity, the absolute uniqueness of each given cultural pilgrimage. And this is why having the space of dialogue, having the space of community is so rich and potentiated, is because something I've realized in the course of travel, in the course of trying to follow my own soul on a nomadic journey, is that where I have been drawn to be, what I have been drawn to wrestle with, is deeply, deeply particular to who I am, my psychic makeup, where I am in my journey. And so for me, being in Mexico has kind of brought me into dialogue with various um, qualities, cultural, religious, libidinal, um, which and tensions, cultural tensions, shadows that are things that my soul has kind of brought me here to learn. Um, Mexico is a country where, especially in Oaxaca, where faith is very alive. is very in the fabric of day-to-day life, and that seems to be something I'm drawn to be around and to understand my own faith and grow my own faith in that context. It's a place with an intense culture of resistance towards centralized authority, towards colonization. It's a place with um, radical change around gentrification and tensions around gentrification, around globalization, around exploitation, both by Oaxacans, by Mexicans, and by extranjeros. And so in choosing to be here, also bring myself into the condition of challenge because I'm placing myself at this kind of cultural rift. And that means, being willing to be sufficiently durable to take on some of those projections. Um, the Culture Pilgrim's path is completely unique, but the path of being a white man in Mexico is not unique. It is a path that many are taking, and collectively that causes a lot of resistance. So that's a little bit of the pieces that have been moving for me, but I sense also that were I a different person, it may be that being drawn to China would be where my soul is called to grow, or being drawn to Taoist philosophy is where like my path of liberation, my path of realization lies at a given time. I remember some years ago, I was in my hometown in Bournemouth, and a Hare Krishna, pretty friendly Hare Krishna, was there, and he was trying to offer me these free books, and they, it was wonderful, like free, cool, like I love books, love to collect books, so free Hindu wisdom texts, Bhagavad Gita, stuff like that. And I remember having a conversation with him and just being like, yeah, man, I mean, I thank you so much, but I'm just not feeling called to this at this time. Like, I'm just not feeling like my deepest intuition is calling me to engage with Hindu philosophy and religion at this time. I'm feeling called to like understand and deepen my relation of Christianity. But if, that there may be a time 10 years, 20 years down the line when that call ripens and arrives and it is my true call, and so then I will be called to explore that culture and receive something unique in my pilgrimage. So I really invite the possibility that the cultural pilgrimage is an unending journey. It's a journey um, of an ever ripening, of an ever shedding, of an ever flourishing heart, and an ever deepening journey into the wisdom that is available in this reality. And yeah, I think for me, this is a creative project. This is about a fidelity, a devotion to the channel of creativity that I am, and to be receptive to that, to be open to that, to protect that, to honor that. I've made a distinct choice not to optimize Culture Pilgrim for some idea of what would be utilitarian, useful, marketable, appealing, but rather like what is the true unique art? What is that thing that in the act of creating it, I feel the very future is being born through me? And that is what I seek to offer in this creative channel. Um, and so a few of the pieces that have been explored, I just wanted to speak a little bit to, what Culture Pilgrim has been exploring over the last year, um, and maybe how that's kind of ripened within myself. I think the journey to the Kogi, there was a two-part piece. Many of you probably read my journey. I think it was called wildly searching for wisdom at the end of the world. And that was an intentional play on words, both in the sense that where I journeyed to was kind of the end of the known world, and the sense of this eschatological end times vibe that we are in. Like, no shit, no kidding. Like, I talk to people who really feel that, religious and unreligious alike. And so there's a sense of like, when things are really falling apart, there's a need to wildly search for wisdom, to go where wildly hold to go, which might not make sense to anybody else or even to you, but to follow that because there's something there that you might be able to realize, to be able to bring back. And so, I mean, that Kogi journey was kind of prompted by a dear friend, Cam Willis, who is a kind of wisdom guide to me. And she encouraged me whilst I was in Colombia to make that journey. And I kind of just said, fuck it. Okay. I changed my plans up. I flew from Medellin to Santa Marta in the north of the country. I made arrangements with a tour guide to travel 2 hours on a bus and a taxi inland to a little village called Acatacaracca, which was extended by quite some time by a tree that had fallen on the road. And there I met a guide who took me 2 hours up very, very crazy roads into the mountains to where the Kogi tribe live and where my Kogi guide would be, and where I spent the next day or so with him, seeing his land, talking with him. And I really encourage and invite you to read the piece, because I can't do it justice here, but I felt in the course of that journey to the Kogi a real sense of arriving in Culturepilgrim. There was a sense of being fully, fully given to the adventure, to being thrown into it, and to finding like, wait, what? Like, where am I? What am I doing? I'm like in this Jeep riding up this hillside in Sierra Nevada of Colombia, speaking Spanish with this guy, and like totally beyond all kind of securities, certainly out of cell phone reach, and certainly like, there was a feeling of like, my parents aren't going to be able to help me now. Kind of like, this is really I've fully entered into the terrain in which it is, it's only God and your wits that can help you and guide you. And that was really important. And whilst I was up there with the Kogi children playing in the river, and lost my ring, I kind of was processing the sense of like this ring I had bought that symbolized the feminine kind of being lost into the river, and that being a symbol of the integration of really being in the feminine, because it was only through that sort of that listening, that attending to intuition, that sort of being open to the call, combined with the masculine of being able to embark on it and to undergo it, that had gotten me into that situation in the first place. So that was an important moment, I think, that occurred this summer, um, alongside which I think there's a commitment to truth that I've been continuing to walk in, to cultivate. I think it's something that we have to practice on the micro scale in everyday conversations. It has to be practiced at the minuscule level of small, courageous truth acts, small, inconvenient truth acts, in order to be practiced at the larger scale in relation to the bigger, more potentially damaging, challenging things that, you could pay a price socially to speak to or speak on. And so the The 66 questions on Israel and Hamas was also an expression of that for me, of a topic that I felt called to speak on, and yet I really took a great deal of time to think about how I could approach it, and posing it rather than in the form of simply an op-ed or an argument of like, this is my take. It was kind of, I was able to produce this hybrid, this synthesis of like, this is my take, but I'm posing it in the form of this iterative questions. And I put together 66 questions around the conflict. And I think the best feedback I got on that is that it helped people to really see, to know less, which is a curious thing to receive from somebody reading your article. But my sense was that there were an awful lot of people who had grokked a rather simple understanding of the situation and were ready to run with it and throw it through windows. And my position was, there's a lot more that we don't know. There's a lot of tensions we haven't thought through. Let's take the time to do that. And so I'm constantly, in a way, choosing to risk killing Culture Pilgrim, because there is this beautiful artistic devotion that I'm showing to this substack and to the rap music and to the cultivation of this and through the Instagram and the aesthetic. And from time to time, something comes along that feels like, if I speak this, if I voice this, if I write this, what are those things that are so heinous to some people that it's going to completely cut them off from me? And first of all, how can I do that as conscientiously and as in integrity as possible? But second of all, can I have the courage to do it nonetheless and to voice those things and to really continue to defy whatever attachment I have to what Culture Pilgrim is, and to just be true with the movement, be true with what's alive as it develops, even when it's going in contra to maybe 100% of my current readership. And I know Charles Eisenstein and other writers in the space have really kind of demonstrated an example of what it means to do that. And yeah, all I can say is that I'm committed to continue to do that. And if I write something that utterly contradicts your expectations of me, then you know why. Um, and I suppose the last two pieces to give mention to here in the context of Culture Pilgrim and what are the kind of biggest pieces moving, undoubtedly it is the Christianity Beyond Itself project, that has really come to live very close to my essence. It feels not like a concept that's out here, but something that's really living and moving with me. It feels like an expression of my being. And that's something which is both ripening and also in the very, very early stages of sprouting. So carefully tending to that, giving voice to that. And I think the way I approached that with the first Substack on the topic was expressive of that. I had intentions to write something more grand in scale, more kind of articulating a conceptual landscape. But I chose instead to write this piece, Kendrick, Carey, Jim Carrey, and Christ and Culture, and kind of tracking the movement of this. I kind of called it like on the tracks, like I'm kind of hunting something. It's not easily visible, but I'm on the hunt of this Christianity beyond itself. I'm listening in all corners. I'm tracking the signs and symbols of the emergence of this thing, which is in some ways the emergence, the flourishing, the flowering of a Christ consciousness, the emergence of something through people's psyches beyond the bounds of doctrinal Christianity, and something which therefore bears out an enormous possibility of something that is almost unimaginable in the context of contemporary Christian culture and has many, many different potential forms and flowers, um, but is animated yet still by some core essential Christological truth. And in many ways, the resonant man also holds a kind of beyond itself position. It's a masculinity beyond itself. It's kind of a holding a deep presence to what we know we want to cultivate in masculinity, whilst also having the humility before a greater healing intelligence and a greater collective wisdom of like, no, we don't actually fully know. That's why we're tuning in deeply. That's why we're creating this field of resonance, because we are actually, when we are true to this thing, when we're really doing this thing, we are downloading the insights, we are downloading the pieces that we need in order to become the resonant man. So I have a lot more said about that on previous and upcoming short videos. I wanted to keep this a little bit of a briefer roundup on Culture Pilgrim. And yeah, I appreciate your ongoing readership. I appreciate your engagement. I appreciate the culture pilgrimages that you all are on, or at the very least resonate with in this work. And yeah, I hope I can continue to surprise you as the journey unfolds.